Oh yes, here we have. I thought I saw someone trying to join, but I guess not. Um, Jada, with that being said, please go ahead. We might have one or two folks trickle in, trickle out,
Okay.
but don't pay no mind. Just keep on going.
Okay. No worries. All right. So I'll take it from here. Hi everybody. Welcome. So, welcome to Style and Mental Health. So I know that I spoke with James in advance and he was talking about like what I do and how mental health will be very relevant as well as self-confidence. And so a little bit about me. So I'm a style coach in the city of Atlanta. What does that mean? I help people find wardrobes that fit them in the best way. So I do a lot of style theory. I discovered style theories back during COVID and I got really obsessed with it to the point where all my friends got tired of me talking about it. So I turned to social media where people would listen and it just went from there. um, and then I started taking clients. It all kind of happened just out of nowhere, kind of snowballed in a way. And I've seen many different clients. I predominantly work with women's style theories, typically geared more towards women, but I think it can be applied to just about anyone, especially if you really look at what they're asking of you. But what I've noticed in working with all of my clients is that there is a mental health component to how we look and how we dress, of course, right? But whoever told me, or if any of you, if you were told that what you wear does not matter, they lied. They simply lied. What you put on absolutely matters, and it's a reflection of how you feel a lot of the times. And in the converse way, you can influence how you feel by how you dress. So kind of looking into the concept of self-care. If we continue on, let me see. Okay, yes. Self-care and style. So of course, when we think of self-care, self-care is very commercialized and a lot of companies and corporations definitely take advantage of us in the name of self-care. All of a sudden, when Lush got popular, self-care became bath bombs and bubble baths. All of a sudden, self-care became makeup when Ulta came in and Sephora came into the picture. All of a sudden, self-care became body sprays and perfumes when Bath and Body Works came into the picture, right? But what it actually is keeping yourself in good standing with what we call the wellness wheel. And I'll go ahead and flip over to that really quickly so you guys can see what that means. So this is what I use. I typically do teach a class in general wellness, and I take I think about 10 to 12 weeks, and I go through every area of the wellness wheel and talk about ways to recognize when you need help there, what you can do to remedy that. But in reality, this is like a holistic approach to taking care of yourself. And it touches on every area of your life. So you can see here, there's emotional wellness, which is coping effectively with life, intellectual wellness, recognizing creative abilities, environmental, spiritual, financial, occupational, and social. The interesting thing that I've noticed in the many times I've gone through that curriculum is almost every area intersects, but they all seem to intersect with physical wellness. It's like everything goes right back to how you feel physically. And let's talk a little bit more about that. So I'll go back. So physical wellness is recognizing the need for physical activity, diet, sleep, and nutrition. And something I like to add in too, because yes, I am a style coach by night, but by day I am a licensed master social worker, therefore a therapist. And I like to add in the importance of stress, and we'll talk about that in the next part of the slide. Stress is physiological. Whoever told us that stress was mental and emotional, it's not true. Stress is purely physiological, and therefore, stress immediately impacts your physical health. And if something is impacting your physical health, and of course, stress is also very, very heavily correlated with your mental well being. When you're experiencing stress in your physical body, you are absolutely experiencing maybe dips in your mental health, exhaustion, anxiety, depression, etc. So they are directly correlated. So, what is self care? Of course, keeping yourself in good standing with the wellness wheel. What self-care is not is overindulging to your own detriment. Again, if these corporations are getting us to run up our credit cards, that's not taking care of yourself. That's actually self-destruction. So, um, again, just kind of keeping in mind that a lot of these places are trying to sell you something in the name of self-care. So in reality, it's really just about making sure you're taking care of yourself in a holistic approach. Everyone's wellness wheel is going to look different at different points of their life. So, what are some requirements to self-care? Boundaries. In order to take care of yourself, you have to be able to say no to certain things. You have to be able to say, I can't do this, and mean it, and not, not try to bend yourself to it. I simply can't do this. Or I can do this, I will do this, and following through with it. Um, and that comes into prioritizing the self. There's nothing wrong with being kind. There's nothing wrong with helping others. There's nothing wrong with empathy and considering others. There's also nothing wrong with turning that inward as well. And self-care is recognizing that. And consistency. So I say self-care is like almost like mental health. It's like a holistic medicine, right? So whatever medicine you're taking, you don't stop taking it when it works. When it works, you keep taking it. Self-care is the same. So sometimes when we start taking care of ourselves and we start making changes and we see that it's working, it's getting us the results that we're thinking, we go, oh, I'm cured, and we stop. Um, that's not the case. And once you stop, you will see again a dip in mental health. So, as well as time management. So sometimes you're going to have to make extra time for whatever you need. So just so something a little bit about myself, I have ADHD. I always say I'm part of the Alpha Delta Delta sorority, ADD. So I struggle with time management. I am completely time blind. And if I have to leave the house at 7:30 to be somewhere at 8 a.m., I have to wake up at 5:30 to leave the house at 7:30. Otherwise, I'm not leaving the house till 10 o'clock. And it's not on purpose. A lot of people don't understand that, but it's just I don't perceive time the same way as other people. So time management is a huge thing, and recognizing what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you're capable of, what you might need a little bit more access with, a little bit more help with, and managing your time based on that. So, why do we need to do self-care? Of course, everyone tells you you need to, but honestly, it reduces stress, reduces anxiety and depression, and it does influence your impressions on others and your relationships. And we'll talk a little bit more about first impressions and how you appear to others, because people can see stress on you. When I have a client coming into me to talk about their wardrobe and I see them in a video call, I immediately know. When I see someone, I'm like, yeah, you got a lot going on. And you can tell by how they look, right? You can tell, and it's not necessarily how they look, but how much effort they put into it. If someone is being pulled in all different directions mentally and they're exhausted and they're really just struggling in life, the last thing on your mind is putting on some mascara. The last thing on your mind is making sure your hair is combed. The last thing on your mind is making sure even your outfit matches or your clothes are ironed, right? Because I got stuff on my mind. So I want to also remind you that since stress is physical, purely physical, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, right? It's almost like your nervous system thinks you're going to die. Even though you're not, your nervous system believes that, right? So if you're going to die, the last thing you want to think about is whether or not you wore earrings today, or put on a watch or a bracelet, right? Or matched your colors. So there's something to consider. And it increases motivation. So again, here's the wellness wheel for people who just came in. And take a second to observe that if you like. Give it about 2 seconds while I take a sip of water. All right. So let's continue to talk about stress. So why is this part important before we even get to style? Because again, if you think you're going to die, or if you're not taking care of yourself, the last thing on your mind is what's in your closet. And so where I'd like to start with a lot of people is, how are you taking care of yourself to make sure that this becomes a priority? If yourself is not a priority and your mental health is not a priority, how you dress is not a priority, how you decorate your space is not a priority, staying alive is, right? So we have to take care of that part first. And the biggest part I personally think about physical self-care is sleep. I think a lot of times when we think about physical self-care, we think about exercise, we think about eating right, and of course that's there. That is important, but sleep is critical. Why? Because actually even the motivation to do those other things decreases with sleep decreases. So you're going to even lack capacity to do those other things that we would consider physical if you're not getting enough sleep. So most adult humans, of course, need about 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Some people can train their circadian rhythm to do less. Some people can train their circadian rhythm to do more. It just depends on the person. However, 6 to 8 hours is optimal. As sleep increases, stress decreases, and vice versa. And that is huge. Another piece of that is consistency in our routine that regulates stress. So if we're not getting enough sleep and our schedule is all over the place, we are more likely to be stressed and therefore less likely to care about our appearance. Okay. Staying hydrated. The interesting piece about this, so social worker, I also work in substance abuse. So when you see that, right, one of the withdrawal symptoms of alcohol is anxiety. Alcohol also dehydrates you. You could even say that anxiety and dehydration are correlated. Not, one doesn't necessarily cause the other, but they are correlated. So sometimes, of course, if your body thinks it's going to die, you're in stress, right? You're in crisis. So staying hydrated can also help with stress as well. Eating healthy, obvious, and making things accessible. So I always say this. This is I'm trying to find a really professional way to say what I say to myself. If the cat keeps peeing in the closet, put the litter box in the closet. I always tell people that because when we start talking about, especially about wardrobe, things like that, people have this idea of how things should go. And it's the same thing with self-care. Well, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. When I get on TikTok, people are doing this, but that's not natural for you, right? What's natural for you? So again, right? I can't wake up 30 minutes before I have to leave the office, before I have to leave to go to the office. I can't do that. It's not possible. And in order to be on time, I have to wake up earlier. Okay. Cat keeps peeing in the closet, put the litter box in. Just wake up earlier, right? Think about what you need and make that come naturally to you and lean into that instead of trying to go with what you should be doing. And that's another term I like to use is shoulding on yourself. So I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and then beginning to beat ourselves up because we can't. Think about what comes the most natural to us and do that thing. Because in a lot of ways, that's what your body wants to do, that's what your mind wants to do. And I'm talking about things that are healthy, right? So there are some times where our mind goes into unhealthy places and we do have to go against it. But there's nothing wrong if you do things a little bit differently. That's okay. So let's talk about the importance of sleep and look at some statistics. So in 2013, there was a study on two groups. One group of adults, I think it was 2,000 individuals in total. They separated into two groups, and one group got 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night over a 30-day period. The other group got less than that over a 30-day period. And then they were, kind of measured how they were in the beginning and how they were in the end on certain items. So the first one was irritability. So the group that got adequate amounts of sleep reported 32% of them reported an increase in irritability. Does that say 45? Hold on. My client view is blocking. Okay, 45% stated an increase of irritability that got less than 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Okay, we continue on at another item, same groups of people. 27% of this group that reported getting sleep reported feeling overwhelmed, increase in overwhelm. The no sleep group reported 40%. Okay, these are big differences. Okay. When we talked about lacking motivation, and again, like I said, if you feel like you're gonna die, you don't care about aesthetics. 30% of the group that got enough sleep reported lack of motivation, as opposed to 40%, 42% of the group that did not get enough sleep. Okay. So what we're seeing here, and there were even more items. I want to say when it came down to patience with your kids, it was like 25 versus 52%. Patience with your partner, it was like 20 versus like 60%. It was wild. So what they were able to prove through that study is that sleep is extremely important in making sure that we are our best selves, and that we're ready to get things done. All right. All right. So dopamine, functioning chemical. So what happens is there is a correlation again between dopamine and sleep. So dopamine is the pleasure center, and it activates feelings of feeling satisfied, and it is associated with achievement. Um, Another important thing that dopamine provides is motivation. It aids in helping us to start and complete tasks. So again, if we are getting enough sleep, we're getting more dopamine. Now, there are other reasons why some people may have a dopamine deficiency. Again, people in the alpha, delta, delta sorority like me have a dopamine deficiency. Okay. So we are chasing dopamine constantly, but there are other reasons why people may be lacking in dopamine, but not getting enough sleep certainly does not help. So, mood, we may sense that our mood is a lot lower when we're not getting enough sleep because we are lacking dopamine. Dopamine aids in improving your overall mood, and dopamine also aids in efficiency with learning and attention increases. And again, sleep regulation. They also have a cyclical relationship. So as you get less sleep, you get less dopamine. So, and vice versa. So, those are all parts of kind of managing stress and self care. This is the why. Why in the world is this important to me? Because you want dopamine in order to show up as your best self. And let's talk more about that. So, we got some researchers behind style, and psychology, and the term is called enclothed cognition. So, of course, what is style? Style is a person's unique way of expressing themselves through clothing. So, we have a book recommendation if anyone is interested in reading it or listening if you like Audible. Karen Pine, she wrote a book called Mind What You Wear: The Psychology of Fashion. And what she found is that clothing can affect our psychology and our performance. So, again, whoever told us that what we wear is not important did not tell the truth. So, let's talk more about that. So, why are we learning about self care and dopamine? Because there is a thing out here called dopamine dressing. Dopamine dressing, and in a lot of ways, if you were to look it up on Pinterest, you'll see a lot of bright colors, you'll see a lot of bright patterns, is what I like to call maximalism. But if we want to simplify it down to its most simple terms, is dressing better in order to feel better. So we're recognizing that how we do look does influence how we feel, and vice versa. It is a lot harder to put more effort into your appearance when you are stressed, when you do have high anxiety, when you do have a lot of depression going on. And what does self care have to do with that? It does aid in that. Does self care cure depression? Am I saying go do self care instead of take your medication, instead of going to see a therapist? Absolutely not. But there's a reason why our therapist does tell us to do those things, because it does work. And we roll our eyes. I do not want to go do that. I don't want to sleep more. I don't think that's going to work, but it does. So dopamine dressing 101, where style meets me. So let's talk a little bit more of what that is. So, this is kind of a series that I'm doing, right? So this is the introduction to it. So later on in the series, we will talk about colors. So there is a thing, some people probably heard about it, color season analysis. I use a lot of that with my clients because everybody does have their own color palette. And those color palettes, when you do wear your colors, it tends to make you look younger. It makes you look more vibrant. It makes you look more alert and awake, and it can take age and weight off your face, right? So when we're talking about dopamine dressing, we're becoming aware of what feels like us. And when I discovered this term, I was super excited about it because that described how I always looked at fashion. So I was always super protective of my wardrobe. If someone told me you can't dress this way, immediately like alarm bells went off in my head. because the way I dressed was how I expressed myself, right? And so expressing ourselves, dopamine dressing is more so about expressing ourselves and that making us feel good because we're allowed to be ourselves in different spaces. So in order to begin dopamine dressing, at its core, you become aware of what feels like you. So even before you discover, what is your best color palette, what colors look like you? What colors make you feel more at home? So something that I've always noticed is that a friend pointed out to me is that I've always loved purple and green. Even my wedding is gonna have purple and green in it. Like I love purple and green. I've always loved it, and different shades of different areas of my life. When I was a kid, it was neon purple, neon green. When I got a little older, it was like pastels, but it was always purple and green. And so I follow that in my wardrobe. I feel the most confident when I'm wearing shades of purple and shades of green. That's a part of dopamine dressing. So again, if you do look up dopamine dressing, it always kind of confines it to bright colors, but not necessarily. It's about what makes you feel good. So some people do feel their most vibrant in black and they look their most vibrant in black. And that is okay. That is completely fine. Some people feel that way in red. Some people feel that way in white, etc. What colors make you feel your most attractive, your most alert, your most confident, your most you? Another part of it is what accessories and patterns feel like you. So at its core, what do I like? Something I've always liked, paisley. I have always loved paisley. I don't know why. I just love it. And so I own a lot of paisley. I own a lot of patterns. I like to color block. I like to pattern mix. And something else we'll talk about later is also facial essence. That's another style theory that I use. And what patterns and accessories and hairstyles look best on you based on your facial features. So some people give off dignity and intensity without trying. And so they may look better in sharper patterns and elongated patterns, and bolder colors. Some people give off youthfulness without trying. So they might look better in small and rounded patterns with lighter colors. And they may feel that way. Something I always also notice in doing kind of like facial essence typing and facial features is that a lot of times when I tell people like, hey, this is a recommendation based on your facial features, it was something they already loved. So sometimes not. Sometimes people are like, I'm not wearing that. You don't have to. But oftentimes people were already doing that because they felt their most at home there. And so that's also a big part of dopamine dressing as well, is what makes you feel at home in your skin. Some people feel like they look better in long skirts. Some people feel like they look better in pants. Some people feel like they're at home in sneakers, blazers, etc. That's a part of dopamine dressing. And then the last part is what silhouettes and fabrics feel like you. Some people feel they're most attractive in velvet. Some people feel amazing in cotton. Some people feel amazing in satin and silk. It's really paying attention to what makes you feel at home. And oftentimes, another style theory I use is the Kibbe system, which focuses more on bone structure rather than weight and shape. Um, Oftentimes, just like the facial essence theory, people's recommendations correlate with what they already liked. Just kind of notice that that looks good on me, right? When I wear capris, when I wear crop pants, when I wear sneakers, when I wear this, I just feel good. I don't know. Longer jackets, longer coats feel good on me. And a lot of times that is correlated with what you already have in your dominant features. Okay. So let's also, in order to do dopamine dressing, you also have to get real. So again, where does mental health and style meet in the middle? There are certain signs of stress that you may not even realize you're giving off. And that can even come down to using dopamine dressing and style theories in order to make good first impressions. So maybe at a job interview, you may do dopamine dressing because you'll feel you're most confident and you're more likely to answer the questions more accurately. You're more likely to think clearer. You're more likely to show up as your best self because you feel at home in what you have on. You know you look good. You feel like you look good. It doesn't matter at that point. Rejection doesn't hit so hard when you feel like yourself. Okay. Wearing the same things repeatedly. These are some things I noticed. And these, of course, these aren't things I noticed in a one-time client, right? But these are things I noticed in the people around me. Sometimes you'll see people, they wear the same pants for 2 weeks in a row. And you're like, okay, they're going through it. They haven't done laundry in a while. They're going through it, right? You can see it. Visual signs that you're lacking hygiene. So sometimes you'll see here I have like a wrinkled shirt, etc., and not the normal wrinkle like I sat down and got up, or I moved around, or I've been sitting here. It's like a no, this is this came out of the closet like this. Right? Those are visible signs that you may be lacking hygiene. Even if you're not lacking in your hygienic routine, this is what you may be portraying to others without realizing it. Okay. And ill-fitted clothing. So again, that also comes down to different people's bone structures, different people's features. There are some people who can wear oversized clothing and it look amazing, right? And those are typically people with broader shoulders. They can wear those super slouchy, super relaxed pieces. But other people, I'll throw myself under the bus on this one. If I wear like a one shoulder slouchy deal, people are like, pull your shirt up, fix your shirt, right? Because I don't have the bone structure for it. And in that case, that would be an example of an ill-fitted piece. Um, so yes, so these are all signs that you may be experiencing some stress. And these are signs that are not only obvious to you and you can recognize them in yourself, they will be obvious to others. And so that may answer the question of, I'm wondering why I'm getting this response sometimes. I'm wondering why this is happening. I'm wondering why, if we're talking about job interviews again, why didn't I get the job? Sometimes, and it sounds petty and it feels petty. And in my opinion, it kind of is. I'm just going to be honest, it kind of is. Um, but that's what they look at. They can see visible signs of stress, and they may not even recognize that that's what they're looking at, but something about it doesn't quite look put together, right? And of course, wearing the same things repeatedly wouldn't make sense for one-time interactions, right? But it may make sense for someone who does see you on a repeated basis, maybe a coworker, maybe a friend, maybe someone you deal with on a daily basis may start to notice something isn't right. This person, it's obvious that they're not combing their hair. It's obvious that they're not moisturizing. It's obvious that they're not doing a lot of things. And is this goes beyond whether or not you wear makeup or whether or not you put on like your best accessories or most expensive accessories. It's the basic things, the small details that sometimes are lacking. So, dopamine dressing is all about self-perception. So here's some example of pieces and choices that you can make that will increase dopamine. So I like to leave people with kind of this is how you do it. Um, Again, wearing pieces and colors that make you feel attractive. So of course, sometimes we're going out into the world, sometimes we're not. I think this part here, it depends on what you're doing. COVID kind of flipped this theory on its head in a lot of ways, because before COVID, Zoom did not exist, right? Zoom existed, but we didn't know about it. We didn't really know about Zoom meetings. Most people didn't work from home. Most people weren't at home all the time. And now that we're out of COVID, a lot of people are. A lot of people are doing exactly what we're doing right here every day. So wearing pieces and colors that make you feel attractive. Now, this is also something though that I like to highlight, is you even do this when you're at home. So something I make all of my clients do is I make them calculate out of 168 hours in a week, how much time do you spend at home? How much time do you spend asleep? How much time do you spend working out, work, etc., whatever it is. And that's what their closet needs to look like. So does that mean that you put all your purchasing power into clothes for when you leave the house? No. You want to be able to kind of see yourself in the mirror throughout the day whatever reason, or just kind of see yourself in reflections, whatever, and go, wow, I look good today. You don't want to associate looking and feeling your best, right? Getting that dopamine rush for when you leave the house, especially if you don't leave the house very often. And what's going to happen is that will take a toll on your mental health. So if you notice that the color blue kind of makes you look a little bit, adds weight to your face, right? It may not be in your palette, and you're wearing it all the time because you got these same blue pajamas and you're always in the house, you're always in these same blue pajamas, you're going to start to notice that I look kind of dusty a lot. Like I don't really look, something. You're going to start to associate yourself as looking that way, right? Because only this tiny sliver of a time you put effort into your appearance. And so when I say that I have my clients do the whole life chart, most people do not spend more than 15% of their life outdoors. And I'm talking about occasions where they have to get dressed up. I've never seen more than about 15%. So imagine the only time you really put effort in, especially now most people work from home, right? A lot of people work from home. Imagine only putting effort into your appearance 15% of your life, right? Imagine only feeling attractive, only feeling comfortable, only feeling at home in your clothing for 15% of your entire life. Of course, we're going to see dips in mental health. And what does not help is what we see on social media. Social media will have you thinking that people look good 100% of the time. They never have a blemish. They never have a bad hair day. They never have, clothing with holes in it, anything, right? That they always look their best 100% of the time. And you've confined yourself to 15% of the time looking that way or feeling your best. Of course, you're comparing yourself to these people, right? The next part is less about the aesthetic and more so about the feeling, is wearing pieces that feel comfortable. So again, another thing that I would love, myth that I love to dispel is beauty is pain. That is not true. You do not have to be in pain to feel and look your best. You don't. And if something is causing you pain, it's simply not worth it. And I will say that till I'm blue in the face. I'll stand 10 toes down on it. You don't have to be in pain to look your best. And of course, if dopamine engages the pleasure center, then pain is the opposite of that, right? So we want to engage things that feel good as well as look good. So maybe you notice that, yes, I look good in this fabric, but I feel the best in this fabric. Is there a middle ground where there's a fabric that looks good on me that feels good as well, that feels comfortable to sit in, that feels comfortable to be in? And another thing is in those every once in a while, stepping out of your comfort zone. So again, for me, purple and green, love purple and green, but every once in a while, and I hated orange. I don't know about y'all. There's colors that we love and colors that we hate. I hated orange, but I found out that orange loves me. So I went out of my comfort zone once and I tried something orange and I loved it. I don't like it on a wall. I don't like it in decor, but on me, it looks good. And so sometimes wearing pieces that kind of put you out of your comfort zone, taking a chance, can also increase dopamine, especially because you kind of get a rush from doing something that felt kind of taboo to you. If you had your own personal taboo about clothing and you try it, you get kind of a rush from that, especially if it works out. And if it doesn't, just take it off. So that is what I have for you guys tonight. And I'm wondering if anyone has any questions.
I'm sure we have several questions, Jada. Does anyone have any question that they want to ask in the chat, or should I just go ahead and throw a question at Jada?
You can go ahead and pull a question. Sure.
Anyone in the chat? Hang on, I got someone trying to join. Here's Mr. Burt. Well, I'll throw one at you. A lot of us here, I think almost everyone here has a physical disability of some kind, or maybe I happen to know for a fact that there's at least one person on this call who is experiencing pregnancy. And what do you do when, when you want to, it's hard when it's harder to maintain your um personal hygiene, I hate the word grooming because I don't think it's a human word, but what do you do when it's hard to maintain personal grooming? Because like for my example, I have cerebral palsy, and
Mhm.
I worked very hard to try to make my hands as steady as possible. But for better or for worse, when I'm holding a razor blade,
Mm,
you know, my hand shakes a little bit, and I
mhm,
just hate the way that I hate the way a razor blade feels against my face, and the result is, my facial hair will grow out, and as a result of that, you know, um, but it's,
James, I wanted to offer something.
yeah.
You could get one of those electric razor things. They make them for men or for women.
Oh, let me assure you, I have two different kinds of electric razor blades, and I had to go to
Cause like I have to have someone help me with stuff like that part of my grooming.
but
I have someone do like checks like that like once a month for me.
okay. Well, Jada, how would you answer that question? I didn't mean to throw something at you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, that's the part when I say making things accessible, right? So that what comes natural, right? So even I'm not sure who just offered that to you, James, who was just speaking.
That was Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. Yeah, so sometimes
Hi,
that
nice to
does,
meet you.
nice to meet you too. Um, I think that's when certain things like getting help is definitely necessary. That's what might be natural at the moment.
Yeah.
So in some cases, that might, oh, okay. So I saw a really interesting take on this where it was like the should, right? So I do have a problem with folding clothes. I'm gonna throw
Yeah.
myself under the bus this whole time. I'm not gonna throw none of y'all on the bus, just me. I have a problem with folding clothes, and that again is executive function. That's executive functioning piece, right?
Yeah.
And there was freedom in the idea that I just don't fold my clothes. Like I have to be the person that doesn't do that. It's a matter of we wash it, we drop it, we close the drawer.
Yeah.
And so, but that also means that there might be certain measures I have to take to organize all of my things, right? Because I'm not going to hang that up. I'm not going to fold that up. Everything is in a bin. So that might be organizing things by color. So it really just comes down to maybe this one thing I can't do, but I can spend extra time getting this, making this happen, right? Maybe I can't. So with the razor blade, I think that's where we get creative, right? So that might look like getting help. That might look like, I know for men it's different. I know you guys, your beard grows back literally overnight. I know for women that
Yes.
might look like going to get a wax. But for men, it's like that's going to be a daily task that you might have to have someone help you with, for
Because
sure.
in full transparency, and I'll put myself on the spot. Recently I tried using Nair instead of using a razor blade, and I left it on my face too long.
Oh,
And for a little while, there were just, little red bumps on my face because for 48 hours because I left nail on my face for too long. But also, yeah, so trying to navigate that with a disability is always interesting, and making sure we get outside enough for some of the folks here who have mobility challenges and they have a hard time, going outside unassisted, or, maybe they don't buy their own clothes, or, maybe they live on a budget and they can't really afford the clothes that they want, or, even to take a more abstract answer, Dragon Con was just recently. I know people who don't feel like comfortable in clothing unless they're wearing cosplay or and you can't wear cosplay every day.
Right.
Like you can't do that. But
Right.
I know people who are like, I feel the most myself when I dress up for Dragon Con. And
Mhm.
so what are some of the things that you would advise for people who may not have uh complete control over their wardrobe?
So that comes down to, so if we were to go back to like when I talked about like the style theories, right? If someone
Yeah.
asked me where do I start, I would say color. So maybe you don't have a lot of control over what exact pieces you have, but maybe you do have a favorite color that looks the best on you, right?
Mhm.
Maybe if that's something you can offer, like, hey, I really like red. Could I have more red? Starting there, if you feel like you look the best there, you find out like this color really makes me look vibrant. It really makes me look good. Color is a good place to start because we're not even worried about silhouettes, fabrics, the complicated stuff. It's simple. If all I have are t-shirts, tank tops, whatever it is, button downs, polos, if they're in the colors that make me feel great, we can start there.
Is there anyone who wants to share what they feel like they're most comfortable in? Does anyone want to be vulnerable and say, hey, and Mr. Drew, I see you talking, but you're muted, so you gotta unmute yourself.
I forgot you muted me. Hi, Jada. My name is
Hi,
Drew.
nice
How
to
are
meet you.
you?
I'm doing good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, when you were talking about what patterns and colors make you most comfortable and what I enjoy wearing, it's funny how you said purple and green because when I was younger, my color was purple, and
Mm,
now it's green.
Well, I can't tell, the color of your room. That doesn't give
right.
that away at all, Mr. Drew.
Yes.
So,
My whole room is painted neon green, as you can tell.
I love it.
But but yeah, I I'm a kind of person that loves solid colors of any shirt, any size, but I hate stripes and I hate um I don't know what else I hate, but it's stripes and I love snake snake skin and other patterns, but I hate stripes.
Mhm.
And I don't know why, but I hate stripes. They don't look good on me at
Mhm.
all.
as
But
Mhm.
someone who is currently wearing stripes, I will argue with you on that, but we can do that separately.
right, but I recently discovered that blue and light blue look good on me as well.
Mm.
But I'm more of the outdoorsy type because I go outdoors all the time. Because my house is part of a cul-de-sac, so I get outdoors all the time, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like James said, sometimes I don't have control over my wardrobe, and I wish I had more control. But for the most part, I do because shopping makes me feel good, and I like snakeskin and crazy patterns and t-shirts and all that stuff. Even Oscar, I have an Oscar shirt and a shark shirt. I'm an eclectic person,
Yeah.
as you can tell.
And going off of that, hey Jada, I'm a man, so I'm not the best person to ask this question, but like if you're a woman or you wear makeup, what part of like I don't know how to explain it. I knew a woman once when I did horseback riding, and I used to do horseback riding every single week. And she would not go out of her house, even if she was coming to the horse barn to work with horses all day. Like, you know you're gonna get dirty working with horses, and she'd done it. She'd done it for decades. She'd worked with horses, but she would not leave her house unless she'd done like her face and makeup.
Mm.
And it was funny because every day, like as the day went on, her face would get covered in dirt and dust. But it would be funny. She would come in, and you could tell how long she'd been there based on if her makeup was still intact. And someone asked her, "Why do you put on makeup every single day, even when you go to a horse barn?" And she said, "Because I don't feel like I'm dressed unless I've put on my makeup." And what degree to that factors into to I don't know, feeling comfortable in your own skin?
Good question. I think that's when especially when we're engaging in things like dopamine dressing, we also have to, that's why I say get real with yourself. Why does this make me feel good? Right? Do I genuinely just like it? Or is there a motive here? And do I know that? And is that something I'm even ready to deal with? I always say, like, sometimes things come up for us, especially mental health wise, or emotionally, and we may not be ready to deal with that yet. I think it's just a matter of, can I recognize that this is what this is and it may need to be dealt with? And maybe not, right? There might be some things that come up for us. It's like, I simply just like it and I'm just going to wear that, and that's okay. Personally, I don't know if that's the worst coping skill you could have. Um, but I think it comes down to your why. Why do I feel like I need this? Why do I love this? Why do I want this? Do I feel like I need it? What's going to happen if I don't have it? And if I get a little bit of stress if I don't have this thing or wear this thing, what means am I willing to go to make sure I keep it? I think it becomes unhealthy if when it becomes to our detriment. So that's what I say when it comes to self-care. Are we self-caring ourselves into debt? Are we self-caring ourselves into treatment of some sort? Are we self-caring ourselves into negative mental health? Then it's no longer self-care. And I would even say that if we are dopamine dressing ourselves into negative mental health, then we are no longer dopamine dressing. We are doing quite the opposite. So that's the point to ask yourself, why do I love this? And what's going to happen if I no longer have this thing?
All right, does
And
anyone else who hasn't already asked the question, I'm looking at you, Mr. Joe, have a question for Miss Jada before I ask her another question, or before Mr. Drew asks her another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think you're a really engaging speaker, and I really appreciate you sharing your time with us. Um, what drew you like into this whole realm as opposed to just, I don't know, working like as a social worker in regards to regular forms of self-care? Like, how did you stumble down this rabbit hole?
First of all, thank you. I'm glad
Yeah.
you enjoyed it. Thank you. So it's funny you asked that. I say that every career path I've ever taken happened on accident. Um, and that's why I say I no longer plan my life. I say God plans my life because I always end up somewhere, and wherever I end up is where I'm supposed to be. And so after a while, I just stopped questioning it. But kind of like during COVID, like I was saying, like on social media, I would see this stuff. And at first, I did not correlate the two. Actually, I was like, I might be a little burned out. I might be done with social work. I might be moving into another career path. And I was doing both at the same time. And I started to notice things. I started to notice that like I was saying, I could tell when someone was going through it. I could tell when someone was depressed just by some of the choices they made when I saw them appearance wise. And so I started talking to people and I started noticing trends among my clients. I started noticing certain things correlated with self care. So I do the general wellness piece in a substance abuse facility right now. I do that curriculum there. So we talk about this from a recovery perspective. Um, and I started to notice those things. I started to notice, like, I can tell when someone might be headed towards relapse just by how they're dressed. And I started to peep that. I started to notice it. And I was like, maybe, but I was never wrong about it. And so I was like, there's got to be a correlation between our mental health and what we look like and what's happening. Or I think next time I might even kind of give you guys an example of like the 168 hours, like your life in your closet, because I also noticed mental health changes there as well. So a lot of times when I saw people who were stuck in the house more, I did notice a little bit more symptoms of depression or anxiety around their wardrobe because they were like, well, I'm not going anywhere, or there was shame around it, or when in reality, it was normal, especially amongst certain age groups. So that's kind of how I got there. It was kind of like eventually they just kind of intersected naturally.
Yeah,
Does
that's awesome.
do you have a follow up on that, Beck? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question for Jada? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller. Bueller.
Jada, going back to my question, what advice would you have for me?
Okay. I like to know a little bit more about your situation. So when you say you don't have a lot of control over what you wear, is there any room for advocacy at all? Because I get that. I'm an eclectic person too. I love your green walls, and even when you're saying like patterns and whatnot, I love that.
Let, let me help Mr. Drew focus his question. He's currently trying to get a job, so he's navigating job interviews.
Mhm.
And he he's navigating job interviews, and he's just trying to put himself out there, make more friends, get, successfully navigate the job interview process, and keeping in mind the fact that, Mr. Drew, do you use a power chair?
Yes.
Yes, so Mr. Drew uses a power chair, and a lot of people who use power chairs, and I see Paul raising her hand, she also uses a power chair. They can't wear, long, flowy stuff
Mm.
because it'll get caught in their thing, and then I don't know if this is always true, but a lot of people I know in power chairs will tend to wear clothes that, and correct me if I'm wrong, any power chair users here, but a lot of people I know who wear power chairs who are in power chairs wear clothing that, no matter what time of the year it is, it's long sleeve and it is long pants in an effort to protect their skin and whatever from the elements, because some of them don't have a ton of mobility.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Well, I'm I'm fortunate to have the opposite problem. I do wear short sleeves and dress shirts and long sleeves, but I was just asking my question as far as, yeah, right now I'm just in the pattern of wearing shirts because I'm t-shirts because I'm nowhere close to getting ready to go back to school or anything like that. So I'm in a pattern of just wearing shirts because I'm at home most of the time till I figure out what I want to do for schooling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're asking kind of like, how do you remedy kind of like having more variety in your closet? Is
Yes.
okay. Well, I think my question for you would be, how important is that for you right now? Because what I'm hearing is that you're like, hey, I'm not going back to school right now. I'm not really doing a lot of leaving the house, so it doesn't really feel like that's a priority. Is that true?
Uh, Sometimes yes,
Okay.
but then sometimes I feel like I want variety because I feel like I wear the same clothes every week
Mm.
because it's t-shirts.
Hmm. And I think that even goes back to saying, like, what are some signs that I might need to engage in, like, prioritizing dopamine dressing, or just kind of looking at when I wear things, like when I put a little bit more like thought into it, more intention into my wardrobe. And again, we're conditioned to think if I'm not going anywhere, there's no reason to. But what I'm hearing from you is that you're kind of describing why it's important to. Um, it sounds like you're
Hmm.
describing like, hey, I'm not going anywhere, so I haven't been putting a lot of effort. I've just been wearing t-shirts, I've been doing this, and I kind of don't like it. I kind of want to shift that.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I would say, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I was talking to my dad. My dad gave me my medicine. Sorry,
Oh,
guys.
no worries.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say lean into that. It sounds like you're kind of in that place of like, it might actually be worth it to really switch up my wardrobe, even though I'm in the home.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Jada.
Absolutely.
If no one else has any more questions, I'll throw one more question at Miss Jada because I'm mindful that it is 8:01 and I want to be respectful of Miss Jada's time.
No worries.
But and I'll use myself as an example here. How do I explain this? If you're a disabled person, and
Mhm.
I'm also speaking directly to something that I know Mr. Drew and I have discussed. A lot of
Hmm.
people will have a tendency to judge you at face value because you're a disabled person. You may look a certain way, your facial expression may or may not be entirely in your control.
Mhm.
And uh, you might stutter, you might have a speech. It's not called an impediment anymore. What's it called? A speech. It's not called a speech impediment anymore. What's it? It's called something now. They don't call it an impediment anymore.
Are you looking for the word impairment? Speech impairment?
Eh, I'm trying to think of. They used to call it a speech impediment. It might be impairment, but thank you, Sophia. Um, but like I have 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree. I
Mhm.
speak 2 languages fluently. I'm
Mhm.
learning a few more, and it is a little sad how much effort I have put into making myself dress like a person, like an adult. I've put a considerable amount of effort in, learning how to carry myself like someone who has all his marbles. Because when I didn't care about that, people would sometimes assume, oh, he's in a wheelchair, so he's also cognitively impaired. And that would be their default assumption. So that's why a majority of the clothes in my closet are collared shirts and
Mm.
khaki pants because I have devoted a inordinate amount of energy into trying to look as professional as possible.
Hmm.
Um, and with like t-shirts are comfortable. I like t-shirts. I don't own a lot of t-shirts because if I look, like someone wearing a t-shirt with sweatpants, which are very comfortable, and I like
Mhm.
wearing them. But if you go to a job interview wearing a t-shirt with sweatpants, people don't always especially if you're in a wheelchair, people may assume, oh, you're in the wrong place. You know, how would you suggest that we navigate maybe some internal biases that other people might have, or some perceptions that other people might have as we carry ourselves into professional environments and that kind of thing. And that's what I'll leave on.
Okay. Well, all right. So you're asking specifically for professional environments?
Yes.
Okay. I think especially let me make sure I'm articulating myself right. I get ahead of myself. When it comes to comfort, well, in a professional environment, I mean, you kind of have it right? The collar shirts and the khakis, it makes a lot of sense in those places. And in a lot of ways, t-shirts don't always make sense there. And I think that's where a lot of people will take some of the things like dopamine dressing to the extreme and go, well, I should be able to wear whatever I want when I want. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. And unfortunately, in environments like that, as much as it does hurt, we do end up being subject to other people's opinions of us.
Yeah.
It's not right, but reality. And I think when it comes to being comfortable, I think it's more so about finding fabrics that feel comfortable in some of those more professional styles.
Okay.
So with you in the collar shirt, if you find a fabric that is more comfortable than some of the ones you have, I will lean into buying more colors of that. So at least when you look professional and you feel more at ease. So maybe finding some of those like trouser styles that you have in different fabrics that feel a little bit better, and it doesn't feel like you're kind of in this super stiff outfit, but you still look the part.
Yeah, and I asked that question because you said wearing the same outfit every day, but all my outfits kind of look similar.
Sure.
So
Sure.
uh,
And of course, go ahead.
it is 8:06. If anyone has any other questions, Miss Julie, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think I have any questions, but this was great. Thanks so much for being here and for doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Miss Sophia, do you have any questions?
I'm good. Thank you for your time.
What about you, Miss Pa?
No.
No, nothing. Okay. What about you, Mr. Josh? No, he's already rolling away. I think he had to go close the door. Do you have any questions for Miss Jada, Mr. Josh? I'm sorry, I caught him right when he was rolling away. I feel bad now.
Hey, James.
Do you have any questions for Jada, Mr. Josh?
No, but I have to go real quick.
Well, we should finish up anyway. Be respectful
Okay,
of Miss Jada's time.
but to your question, no, I don't really have any questions for you, Jada. Thank you.
All right. Well,
This has been a great presentation.
Thank you.
so if nobody else has any questions for Miss Jada, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate the support that you've shown today, and we will make the recording available shortly.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Good
you.
night, guys.
The
Thank you so
recording
much.
available of this meeting.
Yes.
Where are you gonna make it available, James?
Why don't you email me, Sophia, at James
Okay.
at james.sidle@gmail.com, and
Okay.
I'll get it to anyone who wants it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.